All right, welcome to this webinar, the second one that we actually do in line. About 2 months ago, we had a webinar based upon CSP, but this time it's on so A11Y instead. Accessibility. It's a big topic, and I'm actually not going to do this on my own. I do have some help from others, but first of all, welcome. This YouTube stream is going to be recorded so that anything that is being said is going to be something that you can watch back later. And on top of it, we're going to share all of the slide sets together with you as well. But yeah, accessibility is a big topic, and to help me basically explain more about it, first of all, there's going to be Angie Radke. I know her from way back in the Joomla times that I spent there with her, and she's going to talk as a freelancer on accessibility and how actually the current guidelines are going to be updated in the upcoming months, if not years. So that's actually shaping kind of like an overview. Then second, Sean van Zuidam, who's working for HUVA, is going to talk about the practical accessibility guidelines, but more focused upon the HTML part. So what HTML parts are we not using yet in our own web design systems? But I'll leave it up to him to explain more about it. And last, I'm going to talk a little bit about the testing part, really diving in depth with things like Cypress and Playwright, and hopefully showing you that you could also incorporate tests in your own testing pipelines or whatsoever. But yeah, for me, this was just a brief introduction. We're going to end with Q&As later. So the goal here is to have the speaking slots running from right about now until 2:45. And if you have any questions, just put them right here in the live stream at YouTube. We're going to collect all of those questions and come back to them around 3:45 if possible. And I already mentioned about the playback of the webinar. So I'm actually keen to introduce the first real speaker of today. And that's going to be Angie. So hopefully Angie is going to be on air with us soon. Let me double check.
Hi.
Hey, Angie, good to have you here. So I already introduced you as well, that we know each other from the Joomla ecosystem, and that's still something that you do, right?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yes, don't let us talk too much about me. Yeah, I have not much time. Yeah, let's start again. So I
for
will
sure.
share my slides and I go fast through my slides that we
Yep,
have enough time for the important things.
perfect. Take it away.
Okay. Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. So my name is Angie. I'm building websites since 1999 until now, and my heart goes to Joomla and the accessibility. So now today I want to talk about the European Accessibility Act. This act is a law from 1999 that takes care of the participation of people with disabilities. The deadline for the implementation is in June 25. So many people take a look now and they say, oh, June 25, but they had time, 5 years to implement it yet. Everybody knows that government websites must be accessible, but now it's also mandatory for private companies offering essential products and services. And here I especially want to talk about web shops. So the law applies to all private companies and businesses worldwide that sell their products to the customers in the European Union. So maybe if you are sitting in America and you are selling your products to Europe, yeah, you fit to this law. There are some exceptions. So if you have a B2B shop, or if you are a small company with only 10 employees or turnover under 2 million euro, it doesn't fit to you. And always there's a question: what are the consequences if I'm not compliant? So there we cannot say anything right now because I'm not a lawyer, but we had this law is not in action in that way right now, so we don't know what will happen. But we know that the different states have different fines and penalties if you are not compliant. So, but the biggest problem I see in this dunning layers, I don't know exactly if this is the right English word for that, but these are lawyers that come and want to earn money with your errors. And the European Accessibility Act requires compliance with web content accessibility guidelines according to 2.2 level AA. So these guidelines are very long and they explain in detail what to do. So my time here is too short to take a look into these guidelines, but I think you have to know the important stuff is a level AA. In 2007, I wrote a book about accessibility, and at that time, my definition about accessibility was content and interaction should be accessible to every person and every device. So at that time, we had the first iPhone was on the market. So the devices at that time were desktop computers, then this iPhone, and all the devices people with disabilities use and some other kind. But the range of the devices we have right now was not big like it was. And this was the beginning of all these different devices were used. For me, it's very important that we should take a look at the people. So it doesn't matter what law we have, we should make an empathy-based approach. So try to imagine what people need. Yeah, maybe you can step into the problems people with disabilities have, and then you can understand better what they need. At the beginning of the internet, the net was much more important for people with disabilities than for us. At that time, we had something that was called a phone book. It was a big, big book of paper. So where all phone numbers of our town were written in. So if I want to look to a phone number, I have to go through my book and take a look. Oh, here's a phone number of my doctor. So and that time it starts that the phone book goes to the internet. And for many people, that was very great, yeah, because they maybe blind people they could not see or people they could not read, yeah, they can go to the net and take a look for the right telephone number. Today, because of all these data secure stuff, the telephone book is gone. But I think it's a good example. Or otherwise, maybe we can go in the shop and we can buy stuff, and people with disabilities, they can now go to shops and buy their stuff and it is sent by post to their home, and they don't have to go out to get the stuff they want. So I think the net is much more important for people with disabilities as for us, I think. With WCAG, we have a guide. So it's a long list, what we have to do, what we should do, where we care about, yeah. But for me, accessibility is not like going through a checklist and say this, and this. Yeah, for me, it's very important that we take a look at the people and what they need. And if we know what the people with different disabilities need, we think about that. Yeah. So when I'm building a website, I think, okay, this I have to do for blind people. This I have to do for visually impaired people. This I have to do for people with motor disabilities, and so on. So if we know what people need, yeah, we can do it easily. So, and on the other hand, is the internet is not about techniques; it's about people, yeah, because we are want to know it, to get information, yeah, and so the information is for the people, not for techniques. Accessibility and usability is very close together. So everybody uses the internet on their own way. And it's not just people with disabilities who have individual needs. So the basic of every website is the usability, and the accessibility comes on the top, but not the other way around. For an example, when some years ago, I went with my husband and my younger daughter to a do-it-yourself store. We want to buy a hammer. My daughter, she's running through the store looking for the hammer. Where's the hammer? Where's the hammer? Sometimes she will find the hammer. My husband is well structured. Yeah, he's taking a look at the signs at the shelves. Oh, here, the hammer. And for me, I'm very, very lazy. I go to the guy, and ask, where's the hammer? So, and he told me, here's the hammer. And if you go and take a look at the website, how we're using websites, so that it is, my daughter, she uses the content-driven navigation. She goes from the top to the down. My husband uses the navigation, and for me, I prefer the search. So what you see is people with no disabilities have issues, and we all have a various kind of issues. And our web projects must fit to all these needs. And this is not easy. And sometimes we are all disabled. Yeah, the people with disabilities are permanent disabled. Sometimes we are temporarily disabled because we have an accident or something like that, or we are in a situation where we have a problem. So, for example, if we take a look at the eyes, many people think that accessibility means internet for blind people. But there are so many different visual impairments. I don't know all, yeah, but now I'm getting older, and what I see is my eyes are getting bad, so I have a problem. So other people, they have the tunnel view. Some people, they have problems with colors, yeah, and there's so many different kind of visual impairments, and it's not so easy to fit them all. So we have to do, our web projects have to build the sites like that they can change the websites for their needs. So maybe sometimes, if you know it's the summertime, we are going in holidays, and we're sitting with our mobile phone in the sun and we see nothing. Or it's dark, or we drive through a tunnel. So everybody has sometimes problems with websites. So the same, if we take a look at the touch device, that touch problems. So there are people with motor disabilities. Yeah, they have whatever kind, they cannot move their arms, or the left one arm, or we have broken an arm for a time. Yeah, or you're parents and have carrying your children on the hips and you have only one hand. Yeah, or your battery of your mouse is empty and now you have to use the keyboard. Or you are sitting on a moving train and it's going like it moves, and I don't know the English word. Yeah, and you try to put your finger on a button, but it goes always away, and the button is too small, and you could not dip on the button. Yeah, or your fingers are too big to go on the touch place. So, and the other thing is the problem with the deaf. Yeah, but at the beginning I thought, okay, if I have no YouTube video where for me is clear, there's sound, video, yeah, what problems should deaf people have? So, and the big issue is that how deaf people, they all can read, but imagine how children learn reading. They put the letters together and they hear. So, and if you can't hear, it's much harder to learn reading. Yeah. So the people there, with the deaf people, they can't read and write like we do. So this is one thing. Yeah. But if we go to a YouTube video, and hear it. If the environment is noisy, or we haven't cleaned our ears and have a lead inside, yeah, we have problems with sound as well. So, but this is not so important. So, then have the problem with the understanding of structure and the understanding of content, because there's cognitive issues. There are people with a reduced attention span. Then we have people, they don't speak the language good enough. Yeah. If you are stressed, yeah, you don't want to read too much text. Yeah. And maybe children. Yeah. If you build a website for children, you have to take a look at their special needs. And now, what to do? No clue, it depends. It's not so easy to build websites for all people. Making a big website with interactive elements like a shop accessible is not so easy. Yeah, it's more a marathon than a sprint. Yeah, because if you have thought about the accessibility at the beginning from the development, it's more easy than you put it over after. And at the moment, accessibility is a big issue. Everybody's talking about and say, oh, you have to put alternative text, you have to do this or that, and seem to be easy, but it is not easy. And the longer I deal with this, the more complex it becomes. And yes, I will later talk about testing tools. Testing tools are very, very helpful, but they give you only hints. Testing needs people. So here's some quick tips. Everybody, if you read something about accessibility, the first thing is add an alternative text for images. Yeah, but it is much more. Yeah, you have to think about colors and contrast and difference of color. Yeah, at the moment we have the good opportunity with dark mode. I think it's very important that the people think, if they develop a corporate design, they think about the dark mode, because it's good for energy, and it's good for people. Yeah, because if somebody needs a dark mode because it can, it's more good for him to look at it. Yeah, it's great, and it's so easy to build in the website now. Yeah, think about the sizes of elements because of how big is the touch stuff. Yeah, structure your site well, and this is the most important thing. Yeah, it's so important. Structure as well in between of the visuality, the linear technology, and the terms of content. And content is much more important than most of the people think, because we're building websites to bring content to the people. If the content is not accessible, yeah, because it's not well structured and the words are too long and the sentence too long and nobody can understand and you cannot come on the point, yeah, it's a big issue. You can do all the technical stuff. If the content fits not to the accessibility, everything makes no sense. Later on, Sean will talk about using the web standards in a proper way. For example, a button is a button and a link is a link. This is a very, very important thing, because by my tests with Magento stores, I see many times this issue. A link goes somewhere and a button does something. The other thing is, where's the focus? If you go to the keyboard and you tap through the site, you must say where I am. Yeah, so we have to highlight the focus, and the structure must be linear. But if you tap through the content, you have to start at the beginning and you have to end at the end. And you don't have to go from the left to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right. You have to go from the beginning to the end. And this structure is so important, and you have to see where you are. And here, the last one, incorrect use of area. Area is a very, very cool stuff. It extends HTML, yeah? And, but at the moment, everybody is putting it like a can over the website, and we have area attributes where native HTML has its own area, implicit area role. So, for example, if you have enough element, the implicit role is enough. You don't have to add role enough to enough element. You don't have to put banner to a header element. and something like that. But it becomes very, very dangerous if somebody puts area hidden to an element and he forget it, for example, yeah, because he's not using a screen reader. He put area hidden somewhere and stuff is hidden. So it is very, very important to take a look. When should I use area and when not? And the last thing, according to the law, don't use accessible overlays. Accessible overlays are accepted, forbidden by this law because they make, in the most of the times, they don't solve the issue. They make the issue bigger. So don't do it. And everybody, it's for many companies, it's so nice because they earn the money. They tell you, here, use this overlay, and you will be fine. And this is not true. So, and then I take a look at this web shop, and I say horrible stuff. So, and here's so much things to do. Yeah, the contrast is not okay. The slideshow have a keyboard trap. Many issues in the console. So I don't know if this is a good example for a Magento store, but I see here are so many things to do. So, and now I go to Sean.
With accessibility in general is that the devil is in the details, right? So
Yeah.
you pointed out that there could be a checklist somehow to help you guide through kind of like the easy stuff. But then still you need to be aware of all of those other things like area labels or area attributes being added in a place where they shouldn't. And automated tools and the testing stuff that I'm going to talk about is definitely not going to help you there. And a little disclaimer, we didn't really discuss the example of mij.com.
Yeah.
I just double checked, and it's a HUFA site based upon Magento 2 and HUFA. And that's regarded as actually one of the more modern ways of building a site, so based upon HUFA, and Sean himself is actually working for HUFA, so I'm actually kind of intrigued to see what Sean thinks of all of this. So Sean, could you join us? He remains quiet still.
Oh, Sean.
Sorry, I was still muted. There I am. Yes, I will take it over from here. Angie, could you please disable your screen share?
Sorry, Sean.
Oh, no problem. Happens. Oh, that's the wrong one. Apologies. So, practical accessibility. It's a topic that already Angie showed, and it's something that is important as a foundation, as a basis, because accessibility does not yet start at a point where you introduce specific tooling and testing or specific attributes, but it actually starts at the foundation. And sorry, wrong ad. So, but before I go to that, first a little bit about me. I'm Sean. I'm from Zwolle in the Netherlands. I work at HUVA, and I spend my day pretty much every day working with front-end technologies, including accessibility. So, as we already said at the intro, practical accessibility is a lot of things. And for this talk, I'm going to dive into one of those topics, but I just want to share a few of them to give you an idea of all of the practical things you need to consider when building a website, a Magento website, another website, doesn't matter. The basis is semantic HTML. It always starts as HTML. Knowing your HTML, using the right elements for the job, makes you gives you a better front end without losing any of the negative accessibility. And on top of that, you can add all the additions and improvements of accessibility. Now, the same is also for descriptive interactive elements. Don't make a link a here link. Simple things like that. Visual contrast, use good color combinations. Don't use yellow on white or use bad images. And proper focus management is also very important. Use your keyboard if you're not sure. These are things you can test. And there are many more points on the list, of course. So, as I already said, semantic HTML. Let's start at one that really makes a big impact for us all. Before that, I want to first show a few cases that really emphasize the things you can find on the web that already show where people fail to use the proper HTML elements. And for that case, I'm going to show a few examples. And this is not to blame on anyone or any agencies, but just to show that how easy it is for agencies, developers to make mistakes and not use the proper HTML that would, as a result, cause bad accessibility. So the first one is an accordion from this website. As you can see, this accordion is just a collection of divs with a few spans in there, but there's no accessibility, none whatsoever. It will open if you click on it, but there's no keyboard support. There's no actual focus support because you cannot go there with any keyboard. It's not descriptive. What is a div? It's a generic element. It's not a button. It's not telling you what you're interacting with. So this is, well, in shorthand, non-accessible. Same for this one. Same problems, a little bit more code, still the same issue. And if you're not aware, these are Hoover shops. So we deliver a good accessible standard by default in Hoover, but it doesn't mean that you as a developer don't have to also pay attention to your own accessibility when implementing your own accordions or stuff like that. And the last one, I wanted to also go back to something that's a non-accordion. This web shop also has a button using a div. So again, it's non-semantic. The funny one on this website, they actually have an accessibility tool implemented in the site, showing that if your foundation isn't right yet, then adding all of these nice extra accessibility tools is not going to make your website even better in accessibility because you're already failing at the basis, semantic HTML. So we end on a joke with the last example to emphasize the entire point that I was making. If you want to create a button with a div, you actually had to add a lot of accessibility roles. You need to add the tab index. You need to tell the button is being pressed if it's disabled, and a lot of more examples. This is just a very small list, but it proves the point. Using the right element for the job creates a cleaner HTML, a more interactive element, and as the greatest benefit of all, accessibility. So now we all passed all of the use cases and have shown that we have multiple samples on the web, and there are many more out there. You can see how easy it is to use a div for something that is not a div. And take that in consideration. If you're building a website, think about what are you building? How are you going to be navigating to this element? What is this element? And from that point, you always drill down through the HTML options you have to use the right tools for the right job. A div is never a good idea for an interactive element, so that's automatically out of the window. You don't use a div for that. But the real topic, how do you do it right? In the simplest case, let's go back to the accordions. In this day and age, you can use a button. You can use the proper area expanded attribute. If it's expanded, tell it that's an area controlled and toggle the div this way, or even go easier for the elements that are introduced in our browsers, which are already on the browser web standard, use a HTML details element. It even supports, which is a little bit less browser supported, a name attribute to make it an actual accordion without any JavaScript. So it's also benefit in the amount of code you're shipping to your browser. So all the benefits of using the proper HTML actually has a good impact on accessibility, but also in other areas. So it's a win-win. And for the drop down, same use cases. Again, use a button, use the expanded, but then there are a few other ARIA attributes involved. And we can make that even a little bit more accessible because most menus are popovers that show specific elements. We have the HTML dialog, which is an actual dialog element we have in the browser. Requires a little bit of JavaScript to open with a button properly accessible, and then it shows it on the page and it's automatically inert. So you don't interact with the rest of the page. There's no more JavaScript to handle any weird focus management. That's all handled by the browser. Again, proving how important good HTML is. And I can go on about this topic, but these are a good few set of use cases to show how important it is. Now, as Angie already explained, using ARIA attributes isn't always right. You can also cause bad accessibility by over-engineering your accessibility. This is a very common trait you see with the title attribute. Title attribute is something we only use on specific elements to get added a little bit more extra clarity. Think of an iframe that has a need of an alt text. You don't use an alt attribute because it's not part of the iframe attribute. It's a title attribute. Same use case, different tag. And for specific things you want to only show an icon, then you use specific ARIA attributes like an ARIA label that it describes it, or use an ARIA label described by if it's an element that lives somewhere else. For an example, with a tooltip. So with a tooltip, you can make a button. A button has interactivity, so you can still go with focus management or click it on a mobile device. And on desktop, you make it a hover and it's area described by the actual tooltip. So it's always accessible. There are many use cases. It's not an easy job, but starting at the right basis using proper HTML is the thing you should be doing. And that's pretty much it for my talk. I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to get Jisse back into the room.
Yeah, Sean, thank you. And yeah, it occurred to me while listening to Angie and to you that actually you might be waiting and expecting during a webinar like this a long listing of all kinds of tips and tricks, but actually the main point that we come up with is that you need to spend enough time on it. That how to do it right is actually an endless battle. And that there's a lot of different tips, but adding all of those tips in a webinar like this one is going to be overwhelming. So hopefully, exactly, yeah. So it's a long story, but we're trying our best to summarize a couple of things there. And well, theoretically, on the practical part, that's also something I can add my stuff to. Not necessarily by coming up with tips and tricks, but actually how to come up with tools that simply just give you those tips and tricks. So let me slowly get started myself again with my own slideshow. Here we go. All right. So I hope you like my imagery of Neo during the Matrix. That because his mouth locked up. I've got a couple of other pictures coming up. But yeah, so I'm the third speaker now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the accessibility on the testing level. And as you might know, there's automated testing and manual testing. And what Angie already pointed out is actually that the manual testing part, testing as a human, is actually still something that you really need to consider. If you might be a developer listening into this webinar, you might be interested most in the automated testing part. But the fact is actually that a lot of the stuff that is out there, all of those different HTML attributes and HTML elements that need to be applied in the right way, are also depending upon the story that you have to tell, upon the customizations that you have to make. But theoretically, it starts with kind of like a baseline. The things that you always need to do right the things that could be checked for in an automated way. And the first stop there might be actually different browser tools, browser extensions that we're all using on an active level to actually get started with those guidelines like the WCAG or the WCAG, as we say in the Netherlands as well, that basically using these browser tools, they're going to report whether you simply comply to those guidelines, yes or no. Well, one of those tools out there is the Wave evaluation tool. Another one is the XDev tools, and for the XDev tools suite, there's both a paid version and a free version. And I think personally that the free version already gets you up and running in a certain way. I came across a couple of other browser tools, but I think these are the main ones. And the third one is actually maybe the weirdest of all. It's just a piece of JavaScript that you could copy and paste somewhere if you navigate to the homepage of any accessibility testing tool, and then simply that JavaScript snippet is just applied to any kind of page that you would access. But it doesn't really matter what kind of technology is being used. All three of these tools basically come up with a report telling you what is right and what is wrong. And the funny thing is actually that if you dive into the automated testing part, then basically the tricks and the automation that is contained within those browser tools could also be something that could be applied to your own testing suite. Well, as an example, there's a lot of different testing tools out there. Theoretically, there might be tools that are simply built upon PHP Unit. You might be a fan of Cypress, but lately I've been playing a lot with Playwright. And the good thing there is that Playwright is a testing tool that kind of like automates browser actions. And in a similar way that those browser tools are able to report things, Playwright is able also to do that same reporting. And first of all, that's all based upon the core stuff of Playwright. So Playwright is a testing tool, and it uses assertions to basically assert whether a certain situation is right or not right. And that could be done upon a locator assertion that is bound to a specific HTML element. So for instance, for a specific HTML element, you might be checking, does this HTML element have a certain role? So for instance, an area role or an area disabled attribute and so on. And I think actually a lot of those assertions are getting you already so far with detecting whether an HTML element actually has a certain area attribute. But like Angie and Sean also pointed out, this is just the technology, but how you apply that technology, whether a certain HTML element should have an area attribute or whether a button is the button and that's already good enough, that's actually something that you need to come up with yourself. And personally, I also dived into area attributes like the area busy attribute, and specifically that was not there in Playwright out of the box. However, well, it's open source. It's something you can extend upon. So adding your own assertion is definitely also an opportunity. So whatever actually lives within the browser could be tested for with Playwright. And that's already pretty awesome. However, the more easier part is actually also that X developer tools, that is something that you can install in a browser as a browser extension. That same technology is actually also available as an NPM package. And actually there's an integration between that X tool, X Builder in this case, as an object within Playwright, but also in Cypress and theoretically all kinds of other testing tools out there. And personally, again, I played around with Playwright a lot, and simply calling upon the X Builder with its analyze option, then basically you get a report saying whether there's violations depending upon the standards that you picked, but violations or no violations, and turning that actually into a real life coding sample. Then this could theoretically be a test case that lives with your own extension or site. You could use Playwright to navigate to a certain page and then actually do a specific test, like testing whether some HTML element is on the page. But in this case, actually calling upon the X Builder to simply analyze everything on the page and then be done with it. Secretly, this is also a sneak preview for something that is coming up in the upcoming months quickly. Yireo is currently working upon an alternative Magento 2 checkout. So an alternative to the Luma checkout, the one-step checkout or the one-page checkout or another one-step checkout, or I don't know what they're being called, and an alternative to the Hufa checkout. And that thing is going to be called Yireo Loki checkout. And in the upcoming weeks and months, I'm going to communicate, or we're going to communicate more and more upon that matter. So specifically for that checkout, I basically wrote this use case. The first portion of the code on screen is showing that no matter what, the test case in this case is always to navigate into the checkout and do some testing there. But the focus here within this accessibility webinar is, of course, that you could use that X Builder to simply scan an entire page, whether it's basically complying to your own accessibility standards or not. And that's something that you can customize also pretty large as well. So for instance, that X Builder has multiple different tags that could be added. And theoretically, if you don't really care about the WCAG, the WASEC guidelines, the double A, you could also just reduce it to single A and move up and down basically with the severity of all of those reports. That being said, as Angie already pointed out, is actually that the WCAG, I need to come up with a better pronunciation here, but the WASEC standard and then the double A standard is actually also the only standard that allows you to be compliant with the upcoming legislation. So basically, you need to comply with that WASEC 2AA tag. And just come up with it. Theoretically, if you're just testing for something within this playwright suite without actually caring about specific rules like the color contrast, you can also disable that. And specifically in my use case for that Loki checkout, the Loki checkout is just part of a theme, the part of the total of the Magento site. And if the footer and the header are not compliant to the standards, then I don't really test for that. I only want to test for that specific element, HTML element called Loki checkout, and basically detect whatever goes in within that specific div. Now, the X Builder basically allows you to do a lot of different things. And one of the things that popped up in at least the talk of Angie and my talk is color contrasts. And even though that X developer tool is I think already pretty awesome, I personally went into trying to come up with color contrast calculations in a different way. And this is kind of like the outcome of that. So starting off with color contrast. So if you have white on black or black on white, then it's basically great. However, if you then have pink on purple, then automatically it's becoming hard to read. And that's basically on a more technical level. If you want to automate whether something is great or something is awful, then you actually need to dive into the color codes and compare them. And that's kind of like what I try to do. And I bumped into an issue on my personal site. So it's still live in there. There's a video button. The background color is blue. The front end color, or the front color is white. And then basically the X Builder was reporting, hey, the contrast ratio between that blue, the marine blue and the white is actually a contrast of 3.86, while the ratio of 4.5 is kind of like the minimum to comply to that double A standard. So it's all pretty much in detail, but I was wondering kind of like how's this calculation being made? And as a little side note is actually that the marine background color is already a Tailwind class BG Marine 900. And actually, if I would lift it up to 950, that's kind of like the default maximum of colors within the Tailwind system by default. Then actually you would barely reach that 4.5 ratio. But yeah, that's not the point. The point that I wanted to make was basically how's that ratio calculated in the first place? Well, it's basically starting with this luminosity contrast algorithm, and that algorithm basically takes two colors, L1 and L2, L1 being the lightest and then L2 being the darkest, and then coming up with this formula that if you put in a value like L1 and L2, then out comes a specific number, and that number is the ratio, and that ratio is again used in the reporting specifically on color contrasts when it comes to the WCAG standards. Now L1 and L2 are actually not colors, but they're the luminosity of certain colors. So this also requires you to actually get into how to calculate all of those different luminosities of colors as well. And this is actually where I started to read and gave up, because looking at the slide, you can see that it's fairly complex. There's all of these different calculations depending upon numbers that actually never change, but they need to be developed and hard-coded somewhere in your own PHP-driven or JavaScript-driven algorithm. So my main point here is don't do this yourself. If you want to rely upon color contrasts and you want to test for this, know that there's actually multiple tools out there in PHP to help you along with it. And know also that there's actually other tools that are actually pretty great as well to basically calculate the things for you. So the first link here is actually an online tool, and it's good to know that actually the Figma design tool also has this plugin, community-based, to allow for checking up all the color contrast before actually exporting things, so that you can make sure that within the design system, in the design phase, basically all of those colors are living up to the right standards. Yeah, and then last but not least, there's still also the browser plugin. We didn't really demo that, but once you get started with that browser plugin, you will most likely also feel that it's one of the greatest tools that you could dive into to do all of the testing on a manual way. But theoretically, all of those things could also be in a more automated way as well. Now, I just also was flying through my story just to make sure that we have enough time to answer a couple of questions or dive into more topics on top of things. So yeah, this is my talk so far. But if at this moment both Angie and Sean could join me again, then we could slowly go into some questions that might have been asked online already in the YouTube chat. And if not, we can just also get started with a further discussion. So there's Angie.
Yeah.
And there's Sean. Cool. So I'm not sure how we are going to approach the questions. Sean, do you have access to those questions at this moment?
You as well. We shared them in our chat.
Oh. Yep. So yeah, the first question is from Mitchell van Kleef. I'm wondering when it comes to keyboard navigation, if it's also recommended to implement arrow key navigation in addition to the usage of the tab key. I'm wondering, oh, that's actually the repetition of the same question. So yeah, keyboard navigation by using arrow keys. Any suggestions? I don't have a clue.
I do.
Yeah.
So most people that actually use a keyboard on their system use an actual different set of key combinations. You can see those in, and I can only say it on a Mac because I'm not a Windows user, but on a Mac we have the accessibility tools, and that gives you specific key combinations that allows you to navigate through landmarks on your page. Again, emphasizing the right HTML topic that I just gave. If you use right landmarks and a nav element or a section, people with their key combinations can move to these landmarks and then move through the elements and read each element by a screen reader or by Braille or anything else that supports them. So there is no need to actually implement that yourself. The only places where you could consider doing this are custom things you build. For example, think of a slider. On the slider, you want to have a sort of roving tab index where you say, okay, I move my focus into the slider, but I don't want to tab through every slide. No, I want to be on the slider, use the arrow keys to navigate through the slider, and then if I tap out, I tap to the next slide. That's an accessibility enhancement. It's not required because people, again, with their accessibility tools can navigate over these landmarks.
Yeah. Any comment there from you, Angie? Or
no, he's right. I think maybe it's good. Another example will be the navigation. Yeah, so if you tap to the navigation, then you press enter, and then you navigate with the arrow keys inside. Maybe the how you call this mega menu, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. This is something that I would almost say that this is something that you need to do for manual testing. Are there any automated tools that would be reporting this as well, to your knowledge?
I would say no.
Which we know as well, and that's maybe confirming also the story that we had kind of in there, that some things are simply not tested for in an automated way. You need to think like a human to make it accessible for humans as well.
Yeah, but so if to emphasize that question, if you're building something custom that is not something that the browser provides,
Yeah.
for example, a slider or a mega menu, then it's to you to test the flow of how you navigate through it. You can use this with your tab keys or your arrow keys. Then you introduce these behaviors, and if you really want to go a step further, use the accessibility tools that your machine provides to at least feel that if that tool can pass through that test, then you at least have a solid foundation. I'm not saying you have to buy all machines and buy all the testing tools to actually see it, but get that foundation right.
Yeah, cool. Another comment, actually not a question, but a comment, or actually a question to us. Are you aware from Hans? Hey, Hansi. Are you aware that the current calculation of the ratio used by the WCAG is not sufficient? Well, the answer is no. I was not aware that that color contrast calculation is not correct or not adequate or anything. I'm not sure if Sean or Angie already know a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I think Hans, he's talking about all this discussion inside this these communities we have, if it should change, yeah, if it is enough or not. Yes, there's so many discussions about that, and some people are thinking in that way, and the other in the other way. So ask Hans, yeah, which way he prefer, yeah, and I think it's not so easy to answer because so many opinions.
Yeah,
and so many visual impaired people. Yeah, so I think it's very difficult to say I prefer this or that. Yeah, because my opinion doesn't matter. Yeah, what matter is the opinion of the most of the people they are affected. So, and this I have no clue what the best way today is.
No, and it's also the question whether any kind of violations that are going to be reported by tools are actually the violations that you care about, or as a shop owner, or as a developer, etc. So we can raise the bar really, really high, up to that level that actually it's better just to build a plain HTML page without JavaScript, without CSS, because that would be the most accessible. But yeah, it's a question, I think, in general.
To also emphasize the topic, the AA rating is questionable. It's correct in most toolings. The places where it becomes a little bit blurry and where manual testing again is required is when you are using text colors on images or gradients, things that a testing tool cannot proper test. So at the end of the road, a testing tool will tell you it's okay, but always test afterwards if it's really okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. Lars de Weert is asking a question, and that's kind of like redirected to you, I think, Sean. How does Huva value modules that say to be compatible with Huva but don't follow semantic HTML guidelines?
That's a difficult question to answer right now. So thank you, Lars.
And theoretically, does it apply only to HTML that is semantically correct, or does it also apply to other standards like coding standards? And I don't know.
What I can say at the moment from a Hoover perspective, we don't judge the quality of modules. I'm going to say yet. Maybe we will. I cannot give a guarantee on that front. That's something for us internally. From our own code perspective, we want to go all the way, make everything accessible out of the box. So the team, the checkout, the UI, you name it. As for anything that's not part of our modules, always contact the module owners and tell them that they're overriding stuff that shouldn't be there. And the most common example I see with module builders is using anchor links for buttons.
Yeah, for instance.
Stupid.
Yeah. So I think maybe on a different scale, it's also I just mentioned semantic HTML is just one of those issues. What about security issues? What about performance issues? What about issues simply not being able to modify things as a developer in the right way because they are not following the Magento coding guidelines? So there's a lot to take in to qualify a certain module to be good or not. And I think in general, and maybe it's not the job of HUFA to actually do that checking, because it's actually the job of an agency, a system integrator, to integrate, all kinds of pieces of code from all over the place. So including Magento, including HUFA, but also including third-party modules. And definitely when it comes to accessibility, you're always going to add your own layer on top of it, so that you always need to be making sure that the product that you're delivering as an agency lives up to the right accessibility guidelines. So no matter what, no matter how bad or good those third-party modules might be, you still are responsible for all of that checking.
Yeah, exactly. So if you find a module that you really want to use because there's nothing else out there, then the code is yours to manage, and then just copy the code to your own team or your own module that makes it a little bit better, and make it there right. Report it to the agent, the module builder, and then check your own code.
Cool. So we're slowly reaching the end of the webinar. So first of all, there's still a remaining question of Jeroen Gert. Usually our designer uses the colors of our clients' corporate colors, so the housing style. Most clients want that, so that their corporate styling is just incorporated into the web design as well. How do you handle that if they don't pass the test? Discard them and use safe colors? So I think in general this is something that you need to be communicating with the client itself. So if you as an agency or developer, web designer, if you're able to report back that those colors are actually not living up to accessibility guidelines, then the only thing that you could say is, well, we can implement that corporate coloring, but then it's not compliant, or we could replace it with something better. And it's in the end the responsibility of the end client to actually make that happen and give the final call, I guess. Angie, any thoughts there?
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I think this most of the time this is a problem of the design agency, because the client has no clue about accessibility and the colors. And if the design agency gives the client the colors, and this is a problem, so the design agency did the mistake in most of the times, so and the client has no clue about colors and accessibility, so we have to tell all these design agencies that they have to take care about accessibility if they're building up the corporate design.
Or theoretically make sure that the web designer and the web developer is in the loop already early on in the whole stage, but something,
And the same with the dark mode, So now I had a very funny experience. I built a website, and there was a design agency on the way, and I did the dark mode, and they told me, Angie, these colors you use are not corporate colors. You can't do it like that. And if we are talking about programs like that,
exactly, Cool. So we had actually had great questions so far. So theoretically, we can continue this discussion because accessibility is such a wide topic. The only thing that I found it worth still to share is actually that Hans Kuipers shared that there's a Nationaal Congres Digitale Toegankelijkheid. So that's actually a Dutch conference taking place on accessibility on Wednesday, 4th of June and Thursday, 5th of June in next year, 2025. So if you want to know more, then theoretically this is for you. I think actually the story is not yet done, but we need to conclude. The goal was here to organize a webinar of only an hour or so. Let me do some final closing notes. However, before maybe doing that, I want to thank you, Sean, and thank you, Angie, for making this possible. I personally feel really like a nitwit when it comes to accessibility. And I think you did a really good job to basically shape up things. So thank you. And now slowly moving to the final notes on my side. So first of all, the YouTube video of this live recording of this live stream is going to be recorded and available to you afterwards. And once you're actually there on the Yireo YouTube channel, make sure to also check out the quick pick videos that I've been recording. There's all kinds of different topics out there that might be to your interest. A little bit of a more commercial note. I'm also dealing with on-demand courses, video courses that are explaining a wide range of all kinds of different topics in detail. Currently summing up to be 140 plus hours, focused upon things like Hufa themes, MageWire, the Hufa checkout, Magento 2 backend development, etc. So the listing goes on, and you might be interested in checking that out. And besides doing video trainings, I'm also doing live trainings, either in the Yireo office here in Baarn in the Netherlands, in the middle of the Netherlands, or actually through Zoom training. And actually in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to organize a Magento 2 testing workshop, which is also going to tell a couple of things about Playwright and Cypress. So if you liked the testing portion of my talk, do definitely also make sure to check out that online training. Adding to that, in that same office building that I'm currently at, I'm also organizing and hosting meetups in December, on December the 13th. There's going to be a meetup on PIM systems, so product information management systems for Magento. Already, this is kind of like a pre-announcement, but I'm going to organize together with Hypernote also a meetup, a physical meetup again on deploying Magento. And actually, the webinar that we organized today is also going to be followed up with a couple of other webinars. And the first one is going to be there on January the 10th about my Loki checkout that is slowly going to be revealed. So if you want to know more about what kind of alternatives are there for the checkouts that are already there in the Magento ecosystem, do make sure to attend. And together with Sean, I also hope to bring to you on March the 7th a webinar majorly focused upon the web designer front-end developer workflow, together also with Hufa and Figma, and then theoretically something testing as well. So a lot of different events, and that's kind of like what Yireo likes to stand for. But back to the principle of today. Thank you for attending this accessibility webinar. Hope you liked it, and hope that you're going to back soon. Do let us know if you have any kind of questions. The chat on YouTube is going to be available for some time still, and otherwise just reach out to Yireo or Angie or Sean, and we're going to get back to you also with links to the presentations. So thank you, and enjoy the weekend, I would say.